Hey y'all, and welcome to Tawana Talks. So today's episode is one that is it really hits close to home and honestly really close to my heart. I mean, all of the episodes are personal and reflective, but this one does really pull on some heartstrings because throughout this whole process of creating Tawana Talks and coming in front of an audience of people that I don't see, an audience of people that I know, people that I don't know, it's a really vulnerable space. Like, it's a space that you have to be open to whatever comes with it, but also sharing a piece of myself in that true authenticity and transparency for my own growth and development, but also hoping to reach just one and participate in their growth and development. So today I am talking about like grace and like what it means, why we need it, and how sometimes we don't know that we've taken it for granted until we're at that breaking point. And just like the great lyricist Eminem says, you only get one shot. Do not miss your chance. But in today's episode, I actually like to challenge that phrase today. And I want to see while we approach life with this kind of passion, thinking we only have one shot. Grace says, you do not. You do get a second chance and a third. And this catch is that grace, it's not just about the fact that we get another chance. It's about what you choose to do with it. A great friend of mine always says, it's not only about what you do, it's about what you do after. And that's what I'm digging in today. So let's go ahead and get into it. So you all know that I do love to share a good story. And, it's always a story about my life. I've participated in several roles of leadership. Some I chose and some chose me. And one of the ones that chose me in some regards is motherhood and parenting. And it is a great joy and pleasure to be a mom and to be a parent. But it doesn't come with any instructions, right? And so we have to usually learn on the fly. You have to learn in the moment. And sometimes the lessons don't come until after. And what do you do next, right? Like I just said. And so, uh, as I was thinking about the idea for this episode and most episodes are always about what I've learned and gained in that moment. And then I'm so eager to share with others what I've learned and gained, and give my reflective point of view. And hopefully it hits the way I felt it. And so, yeah. So this episode, when I'm thinking about the topic that we're talking about, it brought me back to my parenting of my son. Now, as you all know, I have three children and great spans of age. So between my oldest and my middle child, they're close in age, so they grew up together. But them and my youngest child, it's an 18 to 15 year difference. So my son, being the middle child, um, he's my only son. And so I started thinking about a story of my son, and you have that whole reflective of, a mama's boy. Like, that is a true thing. Like, that's your son. Like, like, I don't even know how to explain it. If you have a son, you know exactly what I mean. And I mean, moms, we love our daughters, but we do have our mama's boys. And so I want you all to picture this. Like, when we think about you're a mama's boy and a son. My son, now a grown man, but we have always been close. And as I sit in reflection and start to think, this kid who is now a grown man, we were close. We were so close. But then there came a time in our life that, as mommy and son close, now realizing that somewhere along the line and along the way, we drifted apart. And it was not even a lie. No, it is heartbreaking. um, as a mom, to think when your children are not as close as they were. And I mentioned in another episode about um, cherishing the moments because they will become memories. And this is one of those things you're thinking about is there are lots of memories I have as my son being a child, and being able to cherish those moments because they're now memories. And for those of you who do not have grown children, take this as my advice of cherishing those moments. And then some of the stuff that we'll talk about in today's episode will allow you to cherish those moments. So those moments that are memories that you share with your child that you've created those memories with, and you don't have to self-reflect in the moment to realize, oh wait, what I did in that moment is contributing to the fact that I'm only sharing this memory alone, if that makes sense. And I think it will once we go through. But then, with that even being said, that God has blessed me with another child that is different in age and span, that the lessons that I've learned or I'm learning or I've gained from raising my oldest children, I now get that chance. I didn't have one shot. I get that chance to do it well with my younger child. And I mean, you have to be able to give yourself, some grace, and also, shout yourself out. Like, I would say that I am a great mother, and I have grown children. So I say I was a great mother to them, as well. And of course, no, there's no perfection. And I'm not saying that I was a perfect mom, but because of the grace of God and the goodness of God, I was a great mom. And so now I'm able to reflect on the things that, maybe didn't go the way that I had planned, and being self reflective, whether intentional or unintentional, but being able to pull on those. And I think it takes great strength and vulnerability to really look deep into yourself and say, what didn't I do? What wasn't I intentional about? And so, getting back to this story, I didn't quite understand like how we got where we were, how we got here, like what happened, because there was nothing stamping to say, oh, that one argument, oh, that one disagreement, oh, that moment is what tipped the boat. No, it was a truly baffling moment of like, whoa, how did we even get here? It was like day and night. And at first, if I'm being totally honest and transparency, and I'm spilling my tea, because this is a space where I'm able to do that, I put the responsibility on him to know that I've always been his mother all his life, but he's not been my son all of mine. And then it hit me. Wait, I'm not going to say and then. It felt like an all of a sudden moment, but it wasn't like I said that and then click. It was like some time had to pass for me to really get there and see that. And this needed to happen for me to get there and see that. And so this is a true testament of things that have to happen in life that allows you to have a moment of growth and reflection. But you gotta have that moment that you don't like, because that helps to uncover the gap of what needs to be done. And so, yeah, so I said, and then it hit me. It was not like oh, I threw the ball and bam, now it hit me. No, that ball was far, far coming before it was like hit me in the head. But I think that I was able to see it because I was open to see it. Um, yeah. And so I just think like that is like how life really works if you allow it to, in some regards. And it takes help, and it takes focus, and it takes just the willingness to be authentic, and that it doesn't feel good. It's just like being asleep all bundled up in your cover, and I feel like everything is nice in my world, and then the cover's pulled off of you, and you're like, whoa. And it's like, because we have things to do, like, like you get up in the morning, you got things to do, and that's what it feels like. It doesn't feel good. But here we are. And so when it hit me, I'm like, yeah, I wanted him to realize that I've been his mom all of his life, but he hasn't been my son all of mine. And I was like, that is right. Like, I have been his mom his whole life, and he hadn't been my son my whole life. And then there's a second part that comes to that I needed to realize that there was a whole life that I lived before he came along. And I wanted him to know that, and him to see that, and him to understand that the life that I had before him contributed to who I am as his mother and how I processed and looked at things. But when I think about that life did come with my own stuff, my own experiences, my own trauma, ways of reacting to life that I didn't realize had spilled over into my relationship with him. It was and still is a humbling realization. And I now realize that I have work to do because that experience also taught me how I showed up in other relationships. It's not just that one and done. This is who I've become through my experiences, through my traumas, through my own stuff, and how life, because life is still happening, and so wasn't like I had a life before my son and then that was it. That's what created me. Experience and life still happened, and so I'm still becoming and still developing and having experiences that are shaping how I react and how I respond. But now being more cognizant and aware of it, of how that shows up. And like I said, it's really humbling. And so through prayer and reflection and reading, and yeah, let's not forget therapy. I've said that in several other episodes about the importance of coaching and therapy, and those things go hand in hand. And so I don't want to forget that those things played a part as well as I'm seeking to understand myself, and understand how I show up and why I show up that way. It's one thing to say, a friend and I were talking about like ailments, that people may have, or situations or issues, within their body or within their life or whatever. And it's like if we think about like depression, it's like, okay, well, you can take a pill that helps you to feel better and not feel depressed. But wouldn't it be much better if you're able to really get down to the root cause of what caused you to feel this way to begin with? And so now you can start to tackle that, because the medicine really just blindsides you, if you will, to say, and I'm not against medicine in any regards, because I mean, like, you have a headache, you take the headache medicine. So maybe I use that example better yet, because depression is deeper. It's a deeper rooted, of course. So I'm going to use a less deep example, if you will, for simplicity's sake. But it still goes to the conversation I was having with a friend. Like, if I have a headache and I take Tylenol, which I do, yeah, that's great. But if I'm consistently getting the headache, then it would be much better if I started to realize and understood where the headache was stemming from and tackle that. Instead of remedying the problem, let me get to the root cause and remedy the cause of the problem. And that's what I've been working on, like through my prayer and through my reflection and through reading and studying and therapy and coaching, of course, is I want to get to the root. I can, we can have a conversation and say, let's move forward. But I want to know, like, what are the things that I've experienced in my life that caused me to show up the way that I show up? How do I process things and why do I process them? So I was laughing with another friend because she's from the South, and very, very loves nature. And I'm not. I'm from the North, and I'm not a nature gal. Like, that's not what I do. I taught science for many years, but I want to study it indoors. I'll study the outdoors indoors. So I don't want to see owls and snakes and lions and tigers and bears on mine. No. I'll see them in a book. I'll study them. I'll understand them, all of those things, but I don't want to be out there. But as we were talking, I shared with her a story about a time, um, that I went camping when I was younger. And I'll get back to what I was talking about before, I promise. But I'm making a point here, so stick with me. But I went camping, and it was true camping. This wasn't glamping, and this is one of the reasons why I don't do camping, because of this story as well. That I only will do glamping. But um, so I was camping, and we were in cabins, and I remember my cousin and I went together, and we somehow got split up and had to be in two different cabins. I think they did like count 1, 2, 3, and then all the threes were here. But because we were so close, we were together, so we didn't get the same number. We didn't understand. Oh wait, move over here, and then you can be a three, and I could be a three. And so they kind of tricked us. It was like a timeshare scheme, the way it happened. But so we didn't get to be together. And so, there's strength in numbers. So we were separated, but there was one particular girl there that, for reasons of not liking us because we weren't like her or we looked a certain way and all the things, she targeted us and she bullied us. And she was in my cabin. And when we were together, she would say little small things, but when we were separated, she would really, really bully. And it was even to the point where I was fearful for my life. She would say things like she was going to kill me in my sleep, or, do things to me in my sleep, that was going to be harmful, or, all of the things. Like, she really made me fearful for my life. And so, when it was time to go to bed, I would sneak out the cabin and go to my cousin's cabin. And I was afraid. And I was even afraid to even say something to the counselors because I felt like, one, they weren't going to believe me. And two, she was going to target me. Like, it was a serious situation. And so I shared that with my friend, and it clicked to her because I shared with her a lot of stories, and she would just laugh, and and didn't have a true understanding of why I didn't like nature and all the things. And she was like, "You're living in the South now," and she would try to convince me all of these things. And this story somehow came up, and then it clicked to her, and she said, a lot of your responses are built out of traumatic experiences of fear when you respond in these ways, or you have these ways that people could see as controlling. They're more of a self-preserving mechanism because of things you've experienced. And I'm like, yeah, duh. But in my mind, I'm thinking, obviously, duh, you didn't see that when I make these responses. But because they didn't have the backstory of it, they didn't understand that. That what they saw was controlling, and not like, oh, this comes from something deeper. And I'm thinking that the way I'm showing up is showing where it comes from, and that's not the case. So now when I think about um, the scenario of me reflecting and getting to know myself through reading and studying and praying, and therapy and coaching, I came across this concept of active accountability. And now, I was definitely raised by my parents to be accountable. It was not like my mom was big on, I will come up to the school and I will talk to the teacher, but you better best believe you better have told me the situation. Um, and then, and if you were wrong, you were wrong. But if you weren't, I'm going to have your back. And the same way I raised my kids, like, tell me, make sure you tell me. Don't let that come to me and I don't know. So I was definitely raised to be accountable, but active accountability hits different. Like, it's not just about owning up to your mistakes. It's really about being intentional, with the way that you show up in people's lives, no matter what's going on inside of you. People don't care what you know until they know that you care. And people, like, really deserve the best of you. And you could have your worst of days. I remember when I was principal, my goal was to be one of the smiling faces, if not the only smiling face that my students saw. And so I wanted to be at the front. We called it the porch because that was the door all students entered. That was my post because I knew what my intentions were. And I remember a student would say, "You're always smiling. Do you ever have a bad day?" And I was like, "Yeah, yeah, I do. But that's not your problem." And I don't know how many smiling faces you saw before you got here or that you will see when you leave here, but I want to make sure you at least see one. And so I will make sure that I'm here for that. So people don't know your story, and they don't know what you're carrying or the things that you have that have actually shaped your reactions. And honestly, it's not their responsibility to know. That's where it clicked for me. But it is my responsibility to create an environment where people that I encounter feel seen and feel valued, especially those people that are close to me, especially those people that God has entrusted me with and I am responsible for. So, what does that look like in our lives? Like, how do we live this thing out? And here's where I want to talk about what grace looks like in action. And like I said in the beginning, when something becomes revelatory to me, I want to share it. And so these are the things that I've kind of just processed through as I'm sharing through. And some things may click even in the midst of me sharing this. And so, one of the things that I do now when I feel myself falling into an old habit or pattern, but first, before I even do that, from reflection and from therapy and from coaching and from reading and from journaling, all of these things play a part. I had to identify these habits. And I couldn't just identify it with myself. Like I can look at myself all day long, like, yeah, girl, you look good. Oh, that's not a bad habit. That's a good habit because you're doing that for this, or the reason why you do this is to do this. But when I stop and I ask for some feedback, so developing a culture where feedback is a gift, and it is a gift because it helps me to get better, whether it feels good or not, is not, you don't say, I don't want to know about it because it doesn't feel good. You do want to know about it because it helps you to be better. Now, let me put this in here because this is a good disclaimer. When you get feedback, it should come from people that you know, that you trust, and that you know have your best interest, because not all feedback is a gift. But there is some feedback that comes from people that you don't know and you don't trust. Like me putting myself out here for this, I could get some feedback in some areas, that's some negative feedback that tells me maybe I don't need to post it in those areas because they have nothing but negative things to say. It's not benefiting them and it's not benefiting me. Um, but I could get some feedback from some areas where, again, me being out here, that comes back to me and says, you know what, maybe I need to adjust this so that people are receiving it well with this information that I'm getting. And so, just developing a culture of where feedback is a gift. And so, if in doing that, I was able to identify some old habits and patterns that that came from a big part of things that I've experienced in life, and that didn't have me to show up well where others are feeling valued and seen. And again, it's a process, and so it's not something like, yep, I mastered it and now I'm done. No, it took me, when I looked back to see, like, when was the first time where I felt like I needed to be in control for my safety. It was like I was 7 years old. And so that's a long time of building that habit. And I live by the motto, a habit becomes a way of life. And so that became my way of life. So do you think I'm going to be able to break that and turn that around in a day? No, but can I now be more intentional and conscientious of when that habit is showing up and developing a pattern? Yes, because now I'm aware. It's that not taking that Tylenol. It's now I'm at the root, so I can say, okay, ooh, I see this showing up. So when I feel myself falling into old habits or patterns, I do this, and this is what I've also learned through reading. I ask myself, God, what do you need me to see? And who do you need me to be in this moment? And that helps me to stop for a moment and do some self reflection, because sometimes I'm like, I don't want to do this, and I'm not doing this, and I'm out of here. There's some situations I'm like, yep, this can be done. Oh, this is done. But then I realized, like, everything happens for a reason. Okay, so God, what do you need me to see and who you need me to be? And I really adopted that from, Sarah Jakes Roberts has said that in one of her books. And I was like, you know what? That is it. Like, you know, everything is in under the hands of God. And so if this is happening, and although I don't like it, or I'm not used to this, or I see me ready to pick up an old habit, or react in a way that I reacted because of old experiences, then asking God, like, what's the purpose of this? And that's another one of my models, like, what's your goal? What's the purpose? What's your goal? And I'm good at asking others when they're communicating to me, like, what's your goal? How do you want me to show up? Who do you need me to be in this situation and scenario? But have I asked God that? And that's just now coming to me, like, what's your goal, God? Like, who do you need me to be? What do you need me to see? How should I be showing up in this? And let me tell you, it has been a game changer, right? And there is power in that question, because now you're going beyond um, checking off a list. and just doing a task, because now there's purpose and meaning behind, your life and every movement and every mode and everything. I have a cousin that we talked a long while back, and I remember she said that even she would even pray in the morning about, God ordering her steps and directing her, like what to wear, because she never knew who she would encounter or what she would encounter, and how does she need to show up for that. And I thought that was powerful. And so it's a really um, great reminder that grace is active. And so having that active accountability is important. And it's not a one and done deal. Like I said, it's saying, you know what? I'm human. I make mistakes, but I'm not here to repeat the same ones over and over. Grace allows us to own up, to course correct, and still be worthy of the relationships that we have. And for those who are, going through relationship strains, you, every person has a responsibility. If you, it could be even, you know, how do I say this? Without going too deep and thinking about, you know, actionable relationships where someone has really slighted you and done something wrong. In those instances, you step back and say, not looking at yourself to say, what did I do to allow to deserve this? No, but how have you learned something from it? If it's a continuous action, what have you done to not? What have you done for creating boundaries, for communicating, and all of those things, and never saying that you deserve a disrespect or you deserve a slightfulness or you deserve someone to have ill will towards you? Not at all. But when I say that everyone has a responsibility in a relationship such as the one I'm talking about with me and my son, I didn't intentionally do anything wrong, but it is my responsibility to realize that I didn't intentionally do anything to safeguard what's here and now, if that makes sense. And what I mean is having a forward thinking. Now I have it because he's this age and I now have a 9-year old. And so now I can think more in the realms of how do I steward the relationship with my daughter who's this young, in a way that's going to facilitate a greater bond and facilitate a continuous bond when she is an adult. And so realizing that I am parenting a future adult and having that forward focus. And no, I didn't have the tools to do that when my older children was younger, but I do now. I do now have the tools. And so my goal is for those that are out there with younger children or even leading, like leading people, because I've done that too. Now stepping back and realizing that, okay, how do I steward this relationship for a long lasting one, for the future of this relationship, for the future of this, of this relationship, period. Like, what do I do in that? And that is my responsibility. That's where I am responsible. Now, on the other end, for those who are maybe on the receiving end of feeling like they have not been stewarded, their relationship has not been stewarded well, then understanding in most regards. And again, it's that I'm not talking about a deeper dynamic where someone has done something to harm you or intentionally was harmful. Um, I'm talking about it in the aspect of having relationships that are worth salvaging. Um, Understanding that on that other end, that receiving end, that the person is still worthy of having the relationship. Like, grace goes both ways. I remember having a conversation with my daughter my younger daughter, and she was saying something about her friend, like, was being annoying, and she was like, she's always annoying me and saying things to aggravate me and get on my nerves, and she knows better. And I was like, oh, yeah, that could be pretty aggravating. And then I said, do you ever say things to get on people's nerves, or to be aggravating? And then I had to bring it home. I was like to me, like sometimes, when you do the whatever. And she's like, I'm not talking about me. I'm talking about her. And I was like, I get it. I was like, so if you says she knows better, then you're saying she's better than you. She's like, she's not better than me. I'm like, you're saying she does it and she knows better and she still does it. So what you're telling me is you don't know better and she is better than you. And she's like, and then it clicked to her like, oh, okay. I see what you're saying. I get it. I get it. I see what you're saying. And then she realized what I was trying to teach her was, and that we had a conversation, that grace goes both ways. So I'm like, just as much as you want her to realize not to do the thing that you're asking her, you need to give, and you do the thing and you want people to forgive you, then you need to have the same grace and understand that she may know better and not doing better, just like you may know better and you don't do better. Give her that same grace to get another chance, have that conversation. But here's the real kicker, like, grace isn't just for you. That's the thing. Like, it's for others, and that's what I was trying to teach her, and that's what I'm learning, and what else what is ugh, I can't talk. The whole purpose of all of this, like, it's for those we are leading to. It's not just for us. Parenting, for example, like, that's just another ball game. I don't even know why I use it as an example, because I'm a parent. Because it's the wild side of things, right? It's like I don't know. Like, if you're a parent, let me just say this. Like, shout outs to you, like, for parents. But, like, unless if you're a parent and you're going for any type of job, we should just be able to put on the resume, I'm a parent. Like, and they should be like hired. Because as a parent, you do all things. Like, that's the leader of leaders. Like, that is the most intense leadership course ever. Yeah, so I'm just going to say that. So yeah. So but when, as a parent though, seriously, you think that you're going, when you get this promotion of being a parent, like, you really do think, for the most part, most parents, we want to do it well. Like, our goal is for our children to be successful. Our goal is for us to do the best by our children. And so you think you're going to be this perfect role model and everything you do is going to show up and shine well in your kid's life. But then there you are, sometimes messing up. Just like the rest of us, just like me, just like your parents, like all parents mess up. We don't always get it right, and that is okay. It's not okay the thing that you did. It's okay to understand that you're not going to get it right, that you're not perfect. There is no such thing as a perfect parent, and that grace goes both ways, because there is no such thing as a perfect child. And so I've definitely learned and am still learning that my children need to see that part of me too, that there's no perfect parent. And that's the thing that I didn't do well the first time. I wasn't playing the role of perfection, but I also didn't show up in the role of making the mistake. When the mistakes happened, I just wanted to fix it and check off the box, and those were the things. Instead of saying, yeah, no, I totally messed this up. Like, they need to see that. They need to see the mess ups. They need to see the makeup. They need to see all of that, because if I'm holding myself to this unrealistic expectation, this unrealistic one shot, do not blow it standard, they'll feel the need to do the same thing. And that's not grace. That is actually pressure. And grace says, show up, do your best, and when you stumble, let it be a lesson and not a roadblock. That reminds me of, I'm gonna get real transparent. But when my son was little, we were wrestling or doing something. My hair keeps getting cut. We were wrestling or doing something and playing around wrestling. And like I said, we were really close. And somebody farted. And it wasn't him. And I said, I mean, somebody said, and it wasn't him, excuse me, And he looked at me with shock in his face. And he was like 5. Yeah, he was like 5. And he was like, I don't believe I'm sharing this with y'all. He was like, Mom, you fart? And I was like, yeah. And he just laughed because he was like, when I heard it, I thought it was me, but I didn't feel it. And then you said, excuse me. And that got me thinking, like, oh my goodness, this is like a point of this. Like, this kid has never seen me pass gas. And so, had that not happened, he would have grown up all his life thinking, not all his life, but until he's heard or saw another woman pass gas, that women don't pass gas. And the first woman that he encountered that did it, he would have been like, something is wrong with you because this has never happened to my mother. Um, and so that is all, albeit funny, that is the case in point. That's the scenario that we're looking at there. So here's where we kind of tie this all together, whether you're a parent, you're leading in an organization, or just relationships, all of it, they're about creating legacy. Remember, I said what you're doing now is for the long stretch. And I want my children and really anyone that I lead and interact with to know that grace is something we give, not just something we receive. And when we hold ourselves accountable, not just to do better, but to be better for them, it means we're saying, hey, I might have messed this up, but I'm here right now to make it right. Tell me what I am doing well and where you see the need for work for me to do it better for you. Teach me how to love you. I talked about that in a previous episode. That's an act of accountability. Asking for that feedback for improvement so that you can understand how to do it well for them. Um, so just imagine this, like you're a mom, you're a leader, and you mess up because we will. Maybe you said something that you shouldn't have, or that someone didn't take well, or you reacted too quickly, or you responded in a way that caused tension, and you got that feedback that that's how you made that person feel, or there was some tension between it, or that person didn't respond well to what you said, and whether you meant it in most cases, like I said, as a parent, you don't mean it in that way. Maybe sometimes you're just checking off the box. And, you know, let me just say that these are actions that, again, I'm sure that didn't intend harm. When we're thinking about this and we're thinking in this aspect of being a parent and being a leader, sometimes we say things and we do things that we don't realize how it's affecting that person short term or even long term because we didn't mean it in that way, right? But when you get that feedback, or even if you're not asking for that feedback, then you don't get it, so you continuously do it. But if you stop for a moment and assess the situation, maybe listen with your eyes, um, then you can get some feedback that or something to say, hey, did I say what I said? Did that hurt you? Or how do you feel about that? Or having that conversation, um, you can then go back and say, like, well, you could do two things. One, you could just be like, oops, my bad. Or you can show that person or your team or your child, like, what grace actually really looks like in action, because that oops my bad, and that's that taking the Tylenol, and it's like, okay, I messed up, I'll think about not doing it like that next time, and that's that. But what about going deeper, and instead of taking that Tylenol, digging down the root and showing what grace actually looks in action, and saying something like, you know what, I see what I did there. And I really want to make sure that it doesn't happen again. Let's talk about it. Let's work on it. That's how you create an atmosphere of improvement and an environment where people feel seen and they feel valued and they feel heard and they feel safe. That's that culture of feedback and making feedback a gift. It's not just a gift to you. It's not just a gift of making you better. It's a gift for the relationship of improvement and legacy. Who doesn't want to have strong, lasting relationships with the people that they care about and the people that they love, where they can be vulnerable and they can be transparent and they can be authentic in that relationship? Because that's where you really get the true bonds from. When you show up who you are and all you are, then people can respond better to that. And if you're a parent, and especially you're teaching, if you're a parent, then you're definitely, teaching your children that their worth isn't in getting it right, but it is in the courage to keep going even when they don't, and understanding that they won't always. It's not about getting it right, it's about growing through it, because we're not gonna get everything all right. So yeah, this was good. All right, so let's go ahead and wrap this one up. This wasn't a check mark, but I'm glad that I was able to talk about this. In fact, I think when this episode airs, we'll still be in the midst of 30 days of active accountability. And so I encourage you, if you've listened to this in the time frame that this was recorded, um, then you'll be right in the midst of the active accountability and what that looks like and how you can do that well in your relationships. But if you're listening to this at a later date, you can still visit my social media and scroll back and look at maybe hashtag active accountability to find it, or visit my social media page and see where it's there. I don't know. I might even put them in this episode if you're looking at it. We'll see. But you can definitely see 30 days of active accountability, and what that looks like and how you can actually be active in it and show up well. And so I just want to leave you with this, like, grace isn't a free pass. That is one thing we just need to remember. Like, it's not like a, get away free with it, but it is a path forward. And the beauty of grace is that it allows us to act with urgency and purpose without the fear that one mistake will ruin it all. So, yes, lose yourself in the moment and own it and never let it go as if you only got one shot. But that when you blow it, and trust me, you will miss it, there's grace to pick you back up and carry you forward. And today, I just definitely want to encourage you to go and practice active accountability. Ask yourself, God, what do you need me to be? What do you need me to see? Excuse me. And who do you need me to be? And extend that grace to yourself, and then let it spill over to the people who are around you. Don't be afraid to show up authentically and with all your flaws and all your strengths, because that's the legacy worth leaving. And that's who you really are. And so I thank you for tuning in to this episode. I hope that this helped you. And remember that every moment is another chance to get it right. And so I'll catch you next time. Peace. Hey, thanks so much for listening. Don't forget to go ahead and hit that subscribe button, like, and share with a mom or someone that you feel this information would be extremely helpful for. Then head over to Instagram and follow me on my Instagram account at TL Collaborative at Dr. T. Wiggins. As always, stay thriving.